The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Majestic Hotel ballroom scattered light like 1,000 tiny diamonds. For Naomi Carter, the head librarian at the old Elmhurst Public Library, it felt less like a glamorous evening and more like being a moth under a microscope. She clutched her clutch bag, a relic from a thrift store, feeling wildly out of place amidst the sea of silk and Savile Row suits. She was only here as a plus one for her flamboyant best friend Chloe, who had already vanished into the crowd. Taking a deep breath, Naomi retreated towards the periphery, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on the one thing that always calmed her, a small mahogany bookshelf tucked away in a corner. As she moved towards it, her heel caught on the plush carpet. She stumbled, and the glass of rich Merlot red wine in her hand flew in a perfect, horrifying arc. Time slowed. The dark liquid splashed against a wall of immaculate white. Not a wall. A suit. A suit worn by a man who had just turned around. The room fell silent. 100 pairs of eyes swiveled towards them. Naomi's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked up, her own brown eyes wide with terror, into the sharp, icy blue eyes of Ethan Drake. The Ethan Drake, tech billionaire, philanthropist, and according to Forbes, one of the most eligible bachelors on the planet. The crimson stain spread across his chest, a vivid, ugly blotch on the $10,000 canvas of his suit. I, I am so sorry, Naomi stammered, her voice a mere whisper. She fumbled for a napkin from a nearby table, her hands trembling. It was an accident. I'll pay for the cleaning, or, she knew she couldn't. The cleaning bill for that suit probably cost more than her monthly salary. Ethan Drake looked down at the stain, then back at her face, which was flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and fear. His jaw was tight, his expression unreadable. The air was thick with anticipation, waiting for the billionaire's infamous temper to erupt. But then something shifted. A slow, deliberate smile touched his lips. It wasn't a smirk of condescension, but a genuine, almost amused curl. "Red," he said, his voice calm and deep, cutting through the silence. "A bold choice. I was getting a little tired of white anyway." The crowd released a collective, hesitant breath. Naomi could only stare, utterly bewildered. While his PR manager hurried over, flustered and apologetic, Ethan waved him away. He turned his full attention back to Naomi. "Most people try to hand me their business cards. You," he said, his eyes twinkling, "you handed me your wine. It's a refreshing change of pace." Ethan Drake. "Naomi Carter," she managed to say, finally finding her voice. "And I promise it wasn't a strategic career move." "I believe you," he chuckled. "So Naomi Carter, what brings you to this den of sharks and sycophants? You don't look like you're here to close a deal." "I'm a librarian," she said, straightening her spine, a flicker of her natural spirit returning. "My friend dragged me here. I was actually heading for the bookshelf." She gestured towards the corner. His eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. "A librarian? You know, I haven't stepped into a library since college. It's all digital archives and AI summarizers for me now." A spark of defiance lit in Naomi's eyes. "That's a shame. There's a soul to a physical book, a history. You can't replicate the smell of old paper or the feeling of a community sharing stories through a screen." Instead of being offended, Ethan looked intrigued. "A soul, huh? Maybe you can show me sometime." What was supposed to be a 5-minute apology turned into a 30-minute conversation. They talked about everything from the forgotten joy of dog-earing a favorite page to the ethical implications of his latest AI project. He was sharp, challenging her, and to her astonishment, he listened. Really listened. For a man who lived in a world of numbers and code, he seemed starved for a real, unfiltered perspection. As the evening wound down, Ethan, on a whim, asked her for a proper tour of her library. "A real one," he said. "No gilded edges, just books." The next day, he showed up at the Elmhurst Public Library, looking ridiculously out of place in his casual yet clearly expensive sweater, but with the same genuine curiosity from the night before. Naomi showed him the children's section, the dusty philosophy aisle, the local history archives. He was fascinated. It was in the archives, looking at old town maps, that Naomi found a faded black and white photograph in a box of donated items. It was of a young couple outside a bakery. The woman was black, with a warm, familiar smile. The man was white, with sharp features and Ethan's piercing blue eyes. "Wait," Naomi whispered, pulling the photo out. "Ethan, look. This is my great-grandmother. She used to tell stories about the boy, from the family who owned the bakery across the street. They were forbidden to be friends, but they'd secretly exchange books through the back fence." Ethan took the photo, his face pale. He turned it over. On the back, in faded ink, was written, "Eleanor and William, our secret spot." "William Drake," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "My great-grandfather. He never talked about his childhood. He just said he left that part of his life behind when he made his fortune." He looked at Naomi, a universe of understanding passing between them. "The books he gave me as a child, they were old, worn-out classics. He said they were the only things that truly mattered. The spilled wine wasn't just a meet-cute, it was a catalyst that brought together two halves of a story that had been torn apart decades ago by prejudice and circumstance. Their story wasn't without its challenges, the intrusive media, the skepticism from his world, the sheer oddity of their different lives. But the foundation they built was made of something stronger than societal expectations." Ethan, inspired by Naomi and their shared history, started the Drake Carter Foundation, pouring funds into preserving local libraries and community histories. The $10,000 suit, now professionally cleaned, but with a faint, ghostly reminder of the stain, hung in his closet. He called it his most valuable possession, a symbol of the day his perfectly ordered life was deliciously upended, leading him to the woman who would help him rediscover its soul. And in the quiet of the Elmhurst Library, often after hours, you could find them, the billionaire and the librarian, sitting together, a single book open between them, reading a story that, in many ways, had always been their own.